Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, Massachusetts.
Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, where we think religious questions are important. Where we think religious questions are important. Is this better?
Yes. Thank you.
Where we think religious questions are important, but we want to work out our own answers. And we gather to share ideas and support one another. We gather this hour as people of faith, having sorrows and joys and needs and gifts. We'd like to speak of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning and in celebration of the life we share together. Could we please join in our opening hymn number 92, Mysterious Presence, Source of Hope.
Love is a doctrine. Truth is its sacrament. The service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine. Thus do we covenant to each other with God.
When the Unitarians and the Universalists were separate, that is before 1961, the flaming chalice was a symbol of Unitarianism. And the Universalists had their own symbol, which I put on the cover. And they explained it this way. They said the circle represents the universe. And the empty space at the center represents the mystery at the heart of the universe, which is what we're talking about if we speak of God. And the cross represents Christianity, of course, which is where the Universalists had come from. They evolved out of Christianity, as did the Unitarians. The cross represents Christianity, which is one path toward God. It's off-center to leave room for other points of view, to leave room for other paths toward God. So it was they wanted to acknowledge where they had come from, but they wanted to express a welcome to people with other religious backgrounds. Now this fell out of use almost immediately because the Unitarians outnumbered the Universalists by 5-1. And a lot of people in UU churches are angry former Christians who don't want to be reminded in any way of their Christian past and are allergic to crosses. So this fell out of use, but it's appropriate, I think, to my sermon today. I have a couple of announcements. One is potluck next week. It might be a little, the building might have a kind of hectic feel next week because, well, a security system is going to be installed on Tuesday. But we'll try to make sure that whoever's here first has the right code. And then the next day, Wednesday, is moving day for a lot of the temple's furniture. So, as I said, the building may seem somewhat chaotic looking next week with all these new items, but we're going to have a potluck anyway. All right. The temple has invited us to attend a service here on Veterans Day. That's a week from Tuesday. Tuesday the following week. It's a service that celebrates the bringing of their Torah scrolls. The Torah, or sometimes called the Torah, it's the first 5 books of the Old Testament. And in Jewish services, Hebrew scrolls, hand-lettered in Hebrew, containing the Torah, are the most important part of the service. And they're going to bring their Torah scrolls into this building, and they'll be installed during services in the ark here, and of course between services they'll be locked up for safety. They invite us to join them. It's a It's a short service. Shoshana, the cantor, says it will only last 40 minutes. There'll be coffee and cake afterward. It'll be, not a heavy involved thing, but we're invited. And I know some of us are attending.
What time?
I'm sorry, 2 in the afternoon. 2 in the afternoon, Tuesday, November 11th. Are there other announcements?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Richard, for leading us this morning in worship. I just want to let everybody know Lisa Kirk is making her first appearance next week. She's very excited. Not only did she send me her information, she called me to let me know she's really looking forward to seeing everybody. She hasn't seen us in a few months, so I know you want to hear her comfortable.
Did everyone hear? Lisa Kirk next week.
Thank you.
And are we still collecting clothing still?
I don't know if we are.
Are we still collecting?
On Thursday, I was at Thrive, actually. And they had a ton of clothes, and we were sorting them. 4 ladies, we were sorting them all. But they're still short, definitely certain sizes. So I can find out what sizes they need and let you all know. I'm not sure. But they can always use like the toiletry stuff, stuff for the winter. Like I know that when I packed, there was plenty of women's hats and scarves. There was no glove. There was a few gloves. There was almost nothing for men. Hardly any hats. No scarves for men. No gloves. So I know they probably can definitely use that kind of stuff.
There are a few things
In there.
basket here.
I forgot it last weekend, so I'll have to grab it.
Thank you. This is my favorite prayer. You've heard it before. You'll hear it again. It's by Kurt Vonnegut. It's from his novel Cat's Cradle. It's a takeoff on the scene in Genesis 2 where God makes the first human out of dirt. But being Kurt Vonnegut, it's not only tongue-in-cheek, but it's deadly serious underneath. I like this a lot. God made mud. God got lonesome. So God said to some of the mud, sit up. See all I've made. The hills, the sea, the sky, the stars. And I was some of the mud that got to sit up and look around. Lucky me, lucky mud. I, mud, got to see what a nice job God had done. Nice going, God. Nobody but you could have done it, God. I certainly couldn't have. I feel very unimportant compared to you. In fact, the only time I feel the least bit important is when I think of all the mud that didn't even get to sit up and look around. I got so much, and most mud got so little. Thank you for the honor. Soon, mud lies down again and goes to sleep. What memories for mud to have? What interesting other kinds of sitting up mud I met. Almost everything I saw, I loved. Amen. And now let us be silent together to create an opportunity for prayer or meditation.
Spirit of light, come unto me, sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion, blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me.
In 1998, the Vatican, under the authority of Pope John Paul II, released a document that was called the Definitive Catholic Examination of Conscience on the Church's relationship to the crimes of the Holocaust. The Holocaust meaning the Nazi extermination of Jews. It was called We Remember, a reflection on the Shoah. Shoah is the Hebrew for the Holocaust. Jews speak of the Shoah, they mean the Holocaust, they mean the Nazi extermination. And I wanted to read you an excerpt from it. By the end of the 18th century and the beginning of the 19th, so about 1800, theories began to appear which denied the unity of the human race. In the 20th century, National Socialism, meaning the Nazis, used these ideas as a pseudo-scientific basis for a distinction between the so-called Nordic Aryan races, of which of course they were part, and supposedly inferior races, including Semites. Semite is a big category, it includes not just Jews, but Arabs and other Middle Eastern peoples. But in practice, anti-Semitism means Jew hatred. The Shoah was the work of a thoroughly modern neo-pagan regime. Its anti-Semitism had roots outside of Christianity. There's a difference between this kind of anti-Semitism, which is based on theories contrary to the constant teaching of the Church on the unity of the human race, and a sentiment of distrust toward Jews called anti-Judaism, which unfortunately Christians have been guilty of. So in the statement, the Catholic Church is making a distinction between being opposed to the Jewish religion, which they call anti-Judaism, in which they say is unfortunate, and anti-Semitism, which is dislike of Jews as people. The Church is making a distinction, and the Church is claiming that it has never been anti-Semitic. It has never been opposed to Jews as people, only to the Jewish religion. Now, I think that they say denial is not just a river in Egypt. I think that the Church is apologizing a little too much for itself. The purpose of my sermon later will be to argue that the Catholic Church created the climate that made the Shoah possible. And incidentally, Cardinal Edward Cassidy, who was a member of the commission who put this document together, said in an interview afterward, he said, the Church enforced ghettos in major European cities before World War II. Those are the antechambers of the Nazi death camps. That was a member of the commission who said that. I said in the advertisement for this that I asked her to send the result that this wasn't going to be a complete downer. It's not. As I was putting the sermon together, I found myself before I got to the end smiling, feeling elated. I'll try to convey that. But to begin. Spain was not a unified country until the 1700s, but until then, it was dominated by two smaller kingdoms called Castile and Aragon. And in about the middle of the 1400s, you may remember from history courses that Islam conquered a lot of Spain. But the Muslims, which they call the Moors, had been pretty much pushed out of Spain by the middle of the 1400s. And in the city of Toledo, which was a city in Castile, the city council passed this statute in 1449. No converso of Jewish descent. A converso was someone who had converted to Christianity. Someone not born and raised Christian, but who converted, a converso. No converso of Jewish descent may have or hold any office or benefice in the city of Toledo. So this was a statute that said, you can be a Christian, but if you used to be Jewish or your background is Jewish, sorry, you're a second-class citizen. So it was really an attack on people of Jewish heritage as people. It wasn't an attack on their religion. And this was approved by the King of Castile, whose name is Henry IV. But the Pope, whose name is Nicholas V, was furious at this. He said, the Pope excommunicated the author of the statute and said, we decree and declare that all Catholics are one body. It doesn't matter if a Catholic used to be a Jew. You can't do this. "20 years later, Isabella was the Queen of Castile, and Ferdinand was the King of Aragon, and they got married. They were about 20 years old at the time. This is 1469. And basically, Spain was a unified country then, but not technically. It was still Castile and Aragon. It wasn't technically united as a single country for another 200 years. But in practice, it was. And after they were married, in 1478, this is 9 years later, they asked the new pope, whose name was Sixtus IV, to authorize tribunals to ferret out secret Jews among the conversos. So it was the same spirit as that Toledo statute. And the Pope agreed to do this and established what we know from history as the Spanish Inquisition. So this was instigated by Ferdinand and Isabella, authorized by the Pope. And on the 31st of March, 1492, this is the other big news of 1492, Ferdinand and Isabella ordered all Jews out of Spain. All Jews were expelled from Spain. And by Jews, they didn't mean people practicing the Jewish religion. They meant people who were ethnically Jewish, whether they were Christian or not. Ethnic Jews were expelled from Spain. And this is from their expulsion order. We had been informed by the inquisitors. The Inquisition had started 14 years earlier, so this is 14 years after that. We have been informed by the inquisitors that the mingling of Jews with Christians leads to the worst evils. The Jews try their best to seduce new Christians back to Judaism. In consequence, our holy Catholic faith is debased. We have thus arrived at the conclusion that the only efficacious means to put an end to these evils consists in the definitive breaking of all relations between Jews and Christians, and this can only be obtained by their expulsion from the country. 50 years later, the then Pope Paul III kind of liked what had happened with this Inquisition in Spain, and he thought there should be an Inquisition in Rome too. And by Rome, we mean not just the city of Rome, but a lot of the surrounding area. Italy, like Spain, was not a united country until the late 19th century. There was a lot of little duchies and kingdoms and things, and a lot of it was controlled by the Pope, and that's what meant here by Rome, the part of Italy controlled by the Pope. The Pope thought it would be a good idea to have an Inquisition in Rome, too. And so he tapped his ambassador to Spain. His ambassador to Spain was Gian Pietro Carafa. He was the Pope's ambassador to Spain. He knew a lot, of course, therefore, about the Spanish Inquisition. And the Pope tapped him to create the Roman Inquisition in 1542. To give you an idea of this guy Carafa's character, this is a quote from him. "Were even my own father a heretic, I would gather the wood to burn him." Now this man Carafa, who created the Roman Inquisition, became the next pope. He became Paul IV in 1555. And he looked back at that statute from Toledo, and he ratified it. He approved it. He said, "This is a great idea. Get rid of anybody with a Jewish background." He established a Roman ghetto at the foot of Vatican Hill. We think of the word ghetto today as referring to a part of the inner city with a lot of poor people, a lot of black and brown people. But ghetto referred to, and before that, ghetto referred to those areas in European cities leading up to World War II where Jews were confined and had to live in a certain part of the city. Those were ghettos. There was the Warsaw Ghetto and the Berlin Ghetto. when you hear about that, remember that ghetto is an Italian word. And be reminded that it was the Pope who created the first ghetto. This Pope Paul IV, who said, I can't get over this, were even my own father a heretic, I would gather the wood to burn him. He established a 1 square mile region at the foot of Vatican Hill to which Jews were confined. They had to live there. There was a wall around it. There was one entrance, one way in, one way out. The same way, one gate. There was one gate. It amounted to, it's like what Isabella did, except internally. They threw the Jews out of Spain to separate Jews from Christians. Paul IV created a kind of internal expulsion. Jews were expelled from everywhere else in Rome. They had to live in this one little area that was tightly controlled. It amounts to the same thing, a separation of Christians and Jews. Jews were not allowed to own any real estate. They could not attend any Christian school or university. In their businesses, they could hire no Christian employees. No Christian employees. Their taxes were higher than other people's, and they were required to wear distinctive clothing and badges so that when they were outside the ghetto, which they were allowed to leave the ghetto during the day, the people would be warned that they were Jewish by their distinctive dress and badges. This was the model for the pre-World War II ghettos in European cities. The Roman ghetto, by the way, was only dismantled in 1870. And when it was dismantled, it wasn't done by the Pope. It was done by the secular government of Italy. Italy had just come into being as a country. And the secular government said, But this was so recent in people's memory that when the ghettos were created in the European cities a little later, this was a recent memory. No one found it unusual to create special areas for Jews in Warsaw or Berlin or other European cities, because the Roman ghetto was such a recent memory. This is where I think Christianity created the climate which made the Holocaust possible. At this time, the Catholic Church had a real problem with having to be right. That's what it comes down to. They had a problem, an obsession with having to be right. And I understand why church leaders were afraid of Jews, and why they were afraid of having Christians intermingle with Jews. A really important part of their doctrine was you go to hell if you don't believe the right things. But the Catholic Church has backed off somewhat on that position nowadays. But back then it was firm. To avoid hell, you have to believe the right things. And one of the things you had to believe was that Jesus had been foretold in the Old Testament. The Catholic Church's favorite gospel is Matthew. That's why it's first in the New Testament. And it's their favorite gospel because it's Matthew's gospel that authorizes the church. It's Matthew's gospel that makes Jesus say to Peter, whom the church claims was the first pope, I have given you the keys to the kingdom of heaven, and what you bind on earth will be bound on heaven, and what you loose on earth will be loosed on heaven. The Catholic Church saw itself as Jesus' representatives on earth, authorized by the Gospel of Matthew. And the Gospel of Matthew is full of passages where something happens, and then Matthew says, and this happened to fulfill this passage in the Scriptures. This happens over and over in the Gospel of Matthew. So this was an important part of the Church's teaching, that Jesus was foretold, was prophesied in the Old Testament. Well, you can see then, this makes Jews a threat. The Old Testament is their book. It's the Jewish Bible. Right? The Old Testament is the Jewish Bible. Jews were more literate than Christians, at least Jewish boys at bar mitzvah had to learn enough Hebrew to read part of the Torah at the service. So here are these better educated people, the Jews, whose book is the Old Testament, who don't find any of these prophecies of Jesus. They say, I don't know what you're talking about. This is a threat. This is a threat. If you're a Christian, you have to be right. You have to believe the right things. This is a threat. Just to have a Jew across the street, you know this guy claims that these prophecies are not there. You just know that when you look at it, or her. If you have to be right, and these people don't see it, then there must be something wrong with them. Right? They must be limited in some way. They must be defective in some way. Here's the birth of anti-Semitism. This is why church leaders were afraid of Jews. This having to be right was really threatened at this time, not just by Jews, but by all the changes that were going on in the world. This is around 1500. Columbus had just discovered a whole new half of the world, right? That had just happened. Copernicus, just a little earlier, had claimed, well, the sun is not going around the earth, it's us going around the sun. Right? That had just happened, guys. 1453. No, 1543, sorry. Oh, it was really recent. 1543. Protestantism. Martin Luther nailed the 95 Theses to the cathedral door in Wittenberg in Germany in 1517, right? That had just, that's a big problem. Martin Luther was a priest, by the way. He was a Catholic priest who was finding all this difficult. And more importantly than any of these other, the invention of printing. Printing books, which had been extremely expensive because they all had to be made by hand. Now, at least a middle-class person could afford to buy a book. And of course, the book they bought first was the Bible. And they could read the Bible and see all the things that are left out of the readings at Mass. Like, at Mass, they hear about Jesus' mother Mary being a virgin for her entire life. Well, if you read the Bible, you'll see that there are a lot of references to Jesus' brothers and sisters. And the church would say, oh no, they meant cousins. That's just. Well, no. The New Testament is written in Greek, and in Greek is a perfectly good word for cousins. And the gospel writers had meant cousins, they would have said cousins. Jesus had brothers and sisters. So this was all happening. Why do I say there's something uplifting here? When I was preparing this, I started smiling. And it was because of this business of having to be right. When I was a kid, I had to be right. I would argue with other kids about something and never give in. I had to be right. And then in the 3rd grade, Kenny, who became my best friend, Kenny, he was a new kid in my school. So I met Kenny, and it was within that first year that we were discussing something, or maybe it was just something, he had said something. But the next day the newspapers completely contradicted what he had said. And he said, oh, I was wrong. And I couldn't believe it. Here's this kid saying he was wrong. I had never said that in my life. I couldn't understand how anyone would say that. He just casually, like suddenly said, oh, I was wrong. And I thought about this. Oh, Kenny, yes. Oh, you've taught me so much. This is a better way to be, right? When you're wrong, to say so, because then you get to learn something. If you have to be right, you never learn anything. I'm happy telling this grim story. I'm happy because I realize I am not afraid of Jews. I'm not afraid of Jews or any other religious people. I'm not afraid of them. We're all in the same boat, I think. We only have so much time here on earth. Most of us are more or less afraid of dying. Some not so much, some more, but very few of us are comfortable with that thought. And this is where religion comes from. Religion is the human response to this knowledge of our own finiteness. And I'm so happy to have discovered the Unitarian Universalist approach to religion. I'm so happy to feel it's okay to learn from other religious people, to be open to their point of view. I don't have to be right. We can support, we can share ideas, we can support one another. If you think you have the truth and someone disagrees with you, then you have to think that there's something defective about that other person, something limited. Maybe you're not very smart or haven't read enough. But if you say we believe in the inherent worth and dignity of every person, which is the first leading principle, then if someone disagrees with me, I don't have the option of saying they're defective. I don't have that option. So if they disagree with me, then there's nothing wrong with them. It means, oh, maybe I don't have all the truth. Maybe I'm not completely right. Maybe there's something I can learn from this person. And that's it. I'm happy to realize I'm not afraid of other religious people. It's good news. It's good news. And now, for the support of this congregation, the morning offering will be greatly received, and I hope really good.
So we're voting Tuesday. I'm personally amazed. We're voting Tuesday. I'm personally amazed at how many people in this city that I've engaged for political reasons, whether it's gathering signatures for the rent stabilization bill or whatever, who not only don't want to vote, they don't even want to be involved in the process at all. And the majority of the reasons that they don't want to be involved is that they feel that whatever it is that they do in the process is completely, totally immaterial. And so for them to get involved is an absolute, complete, total waste of time. Sort of like religion for a lot of us. And I don't have a response to them. It's amazing because I really like some of these people. I mean, a lot. Like, they do a lot for the community. They're involved. They do a lot for their fellow man in terms of, social service functions. But yet they don't do that. And, I try to give them the spiel. Well, if you want to change the system, the only way to change the system is through your vote and, the political process. That's why we're here, and the American Revolution. We all heard of it all, right? I guess, you could have a revolution. That's another way you could probably try to change the system, but I don't think that's going to be too successful. And then we come to, like, this sermon, right? We come to this sermon, and my reflection all during the entire sermon is that we, at least me, and most of my life, have conflated theology and religious thought with politics. Because almost everything can be, viewed in the context of politics. So why did Christianity even come to exist? Politics, right? I mean, the Jews were revolting against the Romans at the time, right? And what better way to really stick it to them is you acknowledge that the one religion, quote unquote, that is so different from them, we'll make them in charge. We'll make that the state religion. That'll teach them, right? I mean, and this goes all the way back, right? Because the religion tells the Jewish people from Abraham, this is your land, I gave it to you. Well, what about the people living there? We're going to slaughter them, right? We're going to exterminate. I mean, so, we're talking, 7,000 years of history, written history of this going on. And what we do, right, as human beings, and I'm gullible just as much as the next guy, is we fall for it. Constantly. We just look at what's happening now. Right? We fall for that spiel that it's them, so that I can maintain control and power, right? It's them. So your attention doesn't look at my control and power and all of the crap I'm doing, right? Your attention is on them. They're doing it. It's not me. And just look at what's, so that's the awakening. I guess we're getting there. My dilemma is, it's like more people aren't awakening. They'd rather be asleep because they don't even want to deal with it than people awakening. And we're falling for it again. And when I look at the world, that's what I see. I don't really see beliefs because I could care less. Whatever you believe, if you can, I might differ from your belief. I'm a scientist, right? In my life, being an educated person, I think, I'd like to assume I have some skills. The more I learned in school, the more I realized the less I knew. I mean, really, I could get to the very top, right, of these fields, and it's like, I don't know anything, right? The entire field's in question, right? But, when I was young, it was like, oh, I was told this is what everybody believes. We all agree that that's what we believe, and it's supposed to be true. Well, it's not true. So I better have an open mind on this stuff, especially as a scientist, But anyway, the politics is really, really divisive right now. And we can't even talk about issues related to almost anything because you're going to hurt somebody's feeling. You're going to be labeled anti-Semite, anti-homosexual, whatever it is. I mean, I don't care who it is. If you say one thing, you're anti that, and God forbid, you should be banished and exiled and go to jail and lose all your rights and privileges. This is insanity to me. Because the entire system is going to collapse if we don't stop talking about real issues. That's it.
Al Sermon.
That's my story, yeah. Thank you.
Well, I have a joy and a concern, and my joy, of course, is being here every Sunday. But my reflection is, in one whole month of October, things have changed dramatically in our country and the way we live, and things are different, and they're going to continue to be different. The concerns are like they took away food stamps and put people in this predicament where if you have $6 a day, that's it. $6 a day to eat, to survive on. And they take it away like, okay, you don't need it. The government needs it. Why? I'm stuck in a position where they take my food stamps. Now I don't have $6 a day to feed myself, to continue on living, to be concerned about what my next day will bring. Because if I have one sandwich, I can cut it up in probably 10 pieces and nibble on it all day long if I had to, $6 a day. But if that's what Donald Trump and the government wants us to survive on, well, I guess there's going to be a lot of thin, skinny, underweighted people because that's going to be the biggest diet of all because people will lose weight. But like I said, a concern is what has happened in the last month of October, how it's changed everyone's life, and how we all sit back and look and go, what are we going to do to change? What are we going to do to make things different? I just hope that one day things will be different for all of us. Coming here to the Unitarian Church has been a blessing for me because it's given me a lot of answers to questions that I've had. I spoke to Richard earlier about things about the Jewish people, how when I was young, when we called somebody a Jew, that was a bad name. We were told around as kids of saying, oh, that guy's a Jew, get away from him. And I would always wonder why we were trying to stay away from people because of whatever they might have believed in religion. Like we believe in today, the Muslims. Why? Why are we afraid of them? Because of things that have happened along the way, but at the same time, there are people who are Muslims, who are Arab, who are beautiful people. We all must remember that everyone here is a beautiful person, a good person, deep down inside. I think that's the way God wanted it to be. Not to hurt each other, hate each other. So my reflection for this last month has been beautiful because I've been realizing that life is changing. It definitely changes because when I wake up in the morning, I say, oh God, thank you. Because I'm afraid to go to sleep at night to not wake up the next day. But I do have faith. And I think that's what's keeping me going every day is faith, knowing that tomorrow is going to be a better day as long as I can make the improvements that I want to. We all have to make improvements in some way, deep down inside. Religion has been a big thing, politics has been a big thing, but now we sit back and we reflect and we wonder, what's the next step? Where do we go from here? How do we change? And how does Richard continue this service?
Don't forget to
I didn't get any funny problems. So we want to do our food stamps and food in general. Done because we were talking about that in my home and you do a little piece, a little tiny piece. So Justin and I bought some groceries the other day and we're going to bring them on Friday to the food bank in my home. There are 3 food banks in my home and we're going to start to volunteer there. So if anybody wants to join us, either with bringing groceries in and I'll bring them there, or you can use your own food pantries in the area because I know we have them everywhere. So it doesn't feel like a lot, but it feels like something. That's a little bit.
Every little bit helps.
Every little bit I think that's.
Every can of ravioli or vegetables, whatever it might be.
No ravioli in my bag.
But it doesn't matter how much, you don't have to bring a whole bag. And that's what they tell you to do. Just bring something that you, if it's a box of cereal.
Yeah.
Man, that can help out some children, you know, that's the idea, is we can think small, we can think big, but at the same time, every little bit will help. I mean, the winter months are coming up, it's gonna get colder, it's gonna, like you were saying about gloves and hats and scarves, things that we need. Every little tiny bit helps.
Well, you want to add one thing? So just to add one more thing to that, it's really important, right? If you know anybody on food stamps, I called, if you know anybody on food stamps, right? So I called around and checked on this. There were a bunch of rumors running around out there, and I had news sites, actual news sites, telling people you better spend all your money. Whatever money's left on your card is going to be confiscated. You're going to lose it, right? That is not true. Right? And in Massachusetts, right, it's really, really important that you keep some money on your card, because the Healthy Incentive Program, which every food stamp recipient receives, gets $40 a month dispersed by the state at the farmer's market, free. So you can go to a farmer's market every month, $40, right? And it's free. It doesn't come off your card. It gets charged to the HIP program. If you don't have any money on your card, you can't use that service. So then I heard in Rhode Island, they say, well, keep a penny on your card. And actually, I was at a meeting in Boston online, and they said, keep a penny on your card. Don't keep a penny on your card, because you won't be able to go to a HIP, place and spend a penny for your produce. Because the way they charge it is that they have to charge up to the amount you have on your card for any given purchase. So if you go there and you try to buy $25 worth of produce, they're not going to swipe 2,500 times, a penny each time so that you can get your produce. So I told them at this meeting, it was a housing meeting, by the way, but I told them at this meeting, and I'm telling everybody, I even, if I could get on a radio, I would tell them, keep at least $5, because for $25, they'll swipe it 5 times for you, right? But not a penny. And I called Hawkins Claus's office, right? And I emailed them as well, because, USDA is closed, so they couldn't answer this question. This is like, 2 weeks ago, and all this crap started. Well, they haven't responded to me, because you know what? Who cares about Fall River people, right? I mean, that's bottom line. He doesn't even have an office in this, I don't want to get into the politics, right? Because it's all baloney anyway. But Senator Rodrigues got right back to me and said, I will find out for sure. And Maureen called me directly on my line, with her line. Imagine that, right? The head of the Ways and Means Committee in the Senate, right? Called little old Alalujo, right? To tell them that, yes, you're right. Because I didn't want to tell people not to do something and not be, pretty sure that it was accurate. So if you do know anybody on food stamps, in your family, friends, whatever, please tell them to keep at least $5 on the card, and you go to the farmers markets that are HIP certified. You can get 40 extra bucks of healthy, fresh produce every month.
And at Cardinal Madero's is every Friday. Every Friday at 11 a.m., Cardinal Madero's has the
Winter time.
yeah, all straight through every single Friday. So they're available in this area of Fall River.
It close to him is an old Unitarian hymn that has a phrase I really like. Revelation is not sealed. Revelation is not sealed. In other words, God hasn't stopped talking in the past. There's new religious truth all the time. Yes.
I just interject that the words of this music from one of our former ministers, Samuel Longfellow.
Oh, that's. Richard, do we have a?
May ours be a religion that, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Richard, do we have a book of remembrance?